good afternoon, Etienne. It's nice to have you here with us.
My honor to be here.
And we would like to have a conversation with Etienne Rabe and just hear about where you're from and your background and what you are doing at the Citrus Symposium today.
And we found your talk yesterday very interesting.
Oh, you guys were there?
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, my voice cracked up, but I think the content was probably fine. So, I grew up in Cape Town, close to in Philippi, actually, the Cape Flats, on a vegetable farm, and those places are all under houses now, with people from the Cape. Went to Stellenbosch, matriculated at Voortrekker, went to Stellenbosch, did my undergrads there, on a Citrus Exchange bursary. So I'm very thankful and indebted to the citrus industry of South Africa for funding all my studies. From there, I went to work in Nelspruit after Stellenbosch in February 1980, and did my master's part-time at University of Pretoria. And early 1983, I was fortunate enough to go to California to study at University of California, Riverside, did my PhD, came back in early 86, went back to Nelspruit as research horticulturist. Eventually, 2 years later, I started managing the forerunner of the current CRI with people in Nelspruit, Cape Town, and Port Elizabeth. In early 90s, I went to Stellenbosch, became professor and also chairman of the department there, started consulting around the world, and eventually ended up in California in 2004, working for two big companies there. The last 16 years, I'm with Wonderful Citrus as Vice President of Agronomy with a team in research, a team pre-harvest R&D and post-harvest. One of my guys are here as well at the conference, and irrigation and entomology and all those kind of things. So having lived a real blessed life so far.
And a full career, traveling around all kinds of places, doing
all kinds of places,
different things.
Been to essentially all citrus areas around the world. Yeah, very, very blessed, and especially since I have my family still intact with me as well, so that's also nice.
That's a huge plus.
Yeah.
So in this very blessed career that you've had, what has been the biggest change that you've seen?
Let me backtrack a little bit. I think the South African citrus industry is probably the most advanced in the world because they have to export fruit. So they have to adopt all the new technologies, have to put fruit on a ship, and for a long time, where other countries like Spain and California is a lot of domestic fruit.
Yes.
Fruit's in the market within 3 or 4 days. Our fruit from South Africa has to get on a ship for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, sometimes 5 weeks. So I think in terms of the biggest change in the citrus business is our growers have become much more professional in South Africa. They're not farmers anymore. They're farmers too, but they're businessmen now.
Yes.
So they've got to do it right, otherwise they're going to get buried, The other thing which is to some extent happening here, definitely in California, is where the small grower gets gobbled up, which is sad, but it's also a sign of the times. These small growers cannot have their own HR, their own food safety people, and so on. You've got to have a certain level of volume to be able to support that.
The scale of quantities.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you said, farming has become a lot more complex.
Yeah.
You can't just, 50 years ago you just farmed.
Yeah.
Now you have to have HR, you have to have biosecurity, you have to have
an accountant.
Food
You've
safety,
there's a long list.
Yeah.
It's become a lot more complicated.
And also to be able to afford technical people. And I think there's a lot of new skills in the business. I mean, I'm a horticulturist, so we're involved with varieties, with rootstocks, with soils, with fruit color, fruit size, pruning, and so on. And then you've got all these entomologists that's got to make sure that the fruit gets treated properly, the residues are low, alternate chemicals so we don't get too much resistance and so on. So it's becoming a complex business.
Yeah.
Indeed. But that's a huge compliment that you say that the South African citrus industry is probably the most advanced in the world. And the way you qualified, that's an interesting take. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. We have to export, so
Yeah.
we'd better be good at this.
Absolutely. And so I've got a heck of a lot. I think some of the better growers around the world we have here. I can think of a handful of guys that will outcompete any grower other part of the world because it's so much more complex here. We're getting the fruit on the ship, in a carton and on the ship and in the market. But in California, there's been, as I said, these changes over the last number of years where the small growers are starting to not be able to compete, having to sell out or amalgamate or form alliances and so on. I'm fortunate that I'm part of a very big company in California where we farm not just California, but also Texas and Mexico. So there's quite a bit of travel involved there and learning a lot of new people. And especially in Mexico, there are fantastic people down there.
Okay.
And fantastic food.
Good people. And so in Texas, except that Texas can be windy. It's a windy place. And warm, hot. Same with Mexico. It's like Durban kind of climate,
Okay.
Yeah, sweaty, so on.
So look, I know a lot of South Africans have traveled across the world to visit some of these places, but for the people who haven't done so, what is so vastly different in California versus what the people in South Africa are doing?
The units are bigger. The unit of management is much bigger than here. It's much easier to farm there. The soils are better. There's much less variability. The climate is fairly uniform. Here we have probably 6 or 7 different climates. Summer rainfall, summer winter rainfall, summer winter rainfall regions, Mediterranean. So South Africa, if there's a buyer around the world, he'll come to South Africa to fill his basket because he can get good grapefruit, good navels, good Valencias, good mandarins, good lemons. California can't grow a decent grapefruit because the climate is not suitable to it.
Okay.
So the South African variation of climates give them a full basket of fruit, where it's not the case in California. California, it's good for lemons, good for mandarins, good for navels, but not good for grapefruit. That's why the company that I work for has some acreage in Texas that's good for grapefruit, and excellent, for limes in Mexico. So I think you asked me about what's different there. Because it's so much easier to farm there, and land is flat. It's not undulating like here in many cases. One person, the blocks can be up to 50, 100 hectares in one block under one irrigation, under one variety and rootstock. So a decision on a technical decision, what to spray, how to irrigate, how to prune, gets rolled out over a big acreage. Here, sometimes guys have 5 hectares. In every 5 hectares, there's a different decision. That's why management here does not have as large an acreage to manage as in California, which also makes management more expensive here than in California. Management per acre
makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So the old traditional area in California around Visalia area, there's still smaller acreages, but those trees are getting taken out and then hectares amalgamated and so on. But in general, the interesting thing is, though, that the cost of getting fruit in the carton in California is not that much different to here. And I can't totally ascribe that because our labor here is much cheaper. In California, it's $20 an hour for the lowest skilled labor. So we have to get around. First of all, have to be more productive. Second, use less hands
Yes.
because we can't afford to.
Yes.
So we go to a much more mechanical type operation.
And automation, I would imagine.
Automation,
some extent.
irrigation, yes, on and off by solenoids and computers and stuff, and pruning with machines instead of by hand,
Okay.
and trying to change our orchard architecture to suit that.
Yeah.
And we will have to increasingly do that in California. And these guys will adopt it here as well.
We were in California in 2022. We visited we went there to work with the table grape cars. So it was
Yeah.
now this week, exactly 2 years ago. And remember those square citrus trees we saw? That was the mechanical ones.
Yeah,
When we went out.
where it's hedge on the sides and top.
Yes.
And we usually do that mostly on Valencias and the Navels, and to some extent on the old orchards of lemons. Nowadays, our mandarins are much more different spacing and so on. So we're a little bit more deliberate in what we do. Yeah.
And for those who don't know, it's really flat.
Yeah.
And the soil is homogeneous.
I see-
Homogeneous, yeah. Towards the Sierra Mountains, which is on the eastern side of the valley, of the Central Valley, where I reside, there tends to be some clay soils, but it's all homogeneous. It's not like here where you have clay lenses, poor drainage, and so on.
It was an incredible visit to see,
Yes, it
see all
was.
those things.
Yeah.
With connection to your presentation yesterday, do you want to maybe elaborate a little bit about the issues you discussed?
Yeah. The first time I spoke, I was in Australia recently speaking about the same thing, because I'm really totally outside of my expertise to talk about HLB, and I'll get to that now. So I'm much more comfortable talking about rootstocks, new varieties, pruning, and so on, getting better fruit size, better fruit color. But since I've been involved with the HLB, the Wang Long Bing program, or the Asian Greening program in California since its inception in 2008, being one of the original board members, I've gained a lot of experience. I'm also on the science subcommittee of the Citrus Pest and Disease program there, and right at the cutting edge of what's happening. And Florida, being decimated by this disease over the last 15 years, as for most people, and you might have heard of Brazil this morning, for most people, been the poster boy for what can happen. And it can happen, but it's unlikely to happen here. It's very unlikely to happen in California, and unlikely to happen here in all climates. Certain climates, let's say Gumati Port, Mozambique, and so on, which emulates Florida, in the Florida climate, probably is at more risk than the other climates. The California climate, with very cold winters, very, very hot summers, 60 days of 40 degrees plus, really gives us an edge in terms of how to manage the vector and manage the organism that causes HLB. So I've been asked to come talk here about lessons that stem from the California experience. And as I said yesterday, it's a little bit presumptuous of me to come and teach these guys lessons, but there's a lot of things that they can adopt. Because the people here are deadly afraid of the disease, which is not wrong, because it can be devastating. But as I also repeatedly said yesterday, is that there is just no way that this industry here will be caught with their pants down, because they're diligent, they're vigilant, and they know what's happening around the world. They know what can come. And there's two parts of the disease. One is the insect or the vector. And without the disease, it's like mosquito. You can have a mosquito without malaria, and it just bites you. But you have malaria with it, and the mosquito can transmit a bad disease. It's the same with HLB. HLB is not always present, but the disease always follows where the vector is, because there's always been someone from somewhere that brought in material, and unfortunately mostly from the Asian countries where the disease is
Where
quite
it is,
prevalent,
yes, where it's
and
from.
people have something in their back pocket. In fact, we've seen it in Southern California, where some of the communities, which are mostly Asian communities, that's where some of the new finds were, and that's all been illegal introductions, So our people will have to watch out for the budwood distribution and all those kind of things.
And is the borders? Well, we're not going to talk about the American borders, but is the airports and places where people come through? Do they actively look for plant material?
As much as they want to, they have these dogs sniffing stuff and so on, but you can have something in your pocket up here and the dog never gets here, and if you pass by and they don't really body search you. So it's not possible to do that, unfortunately.
Interesting. So another thing that's interesting. So if most South Africans hear about California, they think it's American people. But there's a lot of South Africans in California in the fresh produce industry.
Yes, yeah. The one guy here is someone that we appointed from here, and I've really tried hard since then not to. I really don't want to poach the expertise in South Africa, because we need everybody here. I actually, as I said to you, I want to come back here. I'm busy coming back, so I like it here. It's I've got 2 American people here with me from the Citrus Research Board that I wanted to expose to what's happening here. And the one lady, the president of the Citrus Research Board, just made the comment last night and said how well people get along here and know each other and so on. And that's because of these conferences, where people become friends, and this is a way to reacquaint every time.
There's no substitute for actually getting together, looking people in the eye, eating together, spending time together, laughing together.
Have a drink,
There's
even at 11 o'clock at night.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, that will also
last
happen.
night there was quite a few drinks.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, so, and the reason I wanted them to come here is to be exposed to, first of all, the content, the way of organization, because it's an unbelievably well-organized program, and the content of the program. It's not something we have in California. At one stage, I was chairman of the Citrus Research Board there, and I really tried to get the board to agree that we have at least a 2-day conference somewhere away from the production area, so people can get away, bring their families and so on. And I was just not successful. So hopefully with the experience that they get here, we can try that again,
Fantastic. Hopefully you will succeed, because it really has been an incredible experience to be here.
Yeah, but also the info being shared is fascinating.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
one of the things that really stood out to me yesterday was the presentation about how the movement of the pellets happen inside containers, which is
it's totally integrated from the soil, from the nursery to the new varieties to everything production-wise, and getting it on the ship and getting it in a good condition.
And that is the research that they were doing it's on something so basic but so fundamental.
Yeah.
The movement of the pellet can really damage the fruit, so you need to do the best you can to make the pellet as stable as possible.
You can do everything
perfectly to there, and it can get
and then
destroyed.
somebody can stuff it up in the shipping.
And in that regard, South Africa, as far as the research component and the technical expertise we have, and what you've seen here at the conference, is the envy of other parts of the world. Nobody else has it. Not Chile, not Peru, not Spain, not Turkey, not Egypt. California's got a decently organized citrus research board and financing it, but they don't have their own personnel like the industry here.
Okay.
So they have to go out and give grants to university or industry people to do the work, So
Interesting.
yeah.
Could be an opportunity.
Yeah, for that place. Yeah.
Well, That
The-
was incredibly interesting.
and so good to hear such positive information about our citrus industry from somebody who's got the perspective and has seen
The world.
the citrus industries
No.
around the world.
Yeah.
And as my local perspective is we work in not only the citrus industry, but across South Africa, the citrus industry seems to me by far the most organized and together compared to a lot of the other industries. So that is what our perception is.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the apple and pear guys and the stone fruit people are pretty well organized. They don't have the
are.
complement of researchers on staff that citrus has. I mean, obviously mangoes don't have it, avocados don't have it. The table grapes, I don't know enough about their system, but they also have levies and they
Yes.
and they
We
fund
work with
fund
them
research.
we work
yeah.
with them quite a lot, and we are from the Western Cape. We're actually from Worcester.
Okay.
Yes, so
Yeah.
you're be meeting
Yeah.
meeting people from we're all Western Cape origin, and here we are sitting in
Yeah.
KZN.
You know what they say about Worcester, right?
You better tell us.
Yeah, they say Worcester is like a little baby. It's either wet or windy.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
And this past winter it has been wet. It's been
Yes.
wet.
Yes,
Well,
Yes, so-
Etienne, thank you very much
Pleasure.
for your time. We really appreciate
been
it.
extremely interesting, and
Yeah.
thank you for making time to join us.
No,
We
it's,
really
my-
appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
And
Good-
and we wish you all the best for your migration back home.
yeah, thank you very much. Good luck with
Yes.
your work too.
Thank you very
Enjoy.
much.
All the best.